everyone. So I think it's May 2nd today, which is a Thursday. The weather's starting to turn here in Perth. We've had a couple of rainy days in the past 4 or 5. Yeah, nothing substantial yet, but yeah, winter's starting to rear its I wouldn't say ugly head. I don't hate winter. It does always take me by surprise. One day I'll just be lounging around like I am today, in like in shorts and a tank top, and then the next day I'll be, like freezing cold and pulling out like my pull-up, my hoodies and all this. It's really odd that the seasons here in Perth, Western Australia. We really only have two. We really just have summer and winter, truth be known. I mean, there is spring. There is evidence of spring in the form of like blooming flowers, especially like a lot of our native flowers bloom in spring. However, yeah, we don't really get classic, all the rest of the classic sort of spring and autumn symptoms, I was about to call them, as characteristics. We just have like that time of the year when the weather's going to be pretty warm, and obviously also the nights start to get long, and then we have that part of the year when the nights start to get when the days are long, and then we have winter where the days get progressively shorter, or the sunlight hours of sunlight anyway, and the weather seems to suddenly turn from very, very, from what in most parts of the world, certainly up. And I mean, look, having lived in the UK for a couple of years, the notion of like it being like autumn. Hang on, are we in autumn or spring? No, we are summer, autumn, winter. Summer, autumn, winter. Yeah, autumn. We are in autumn. The notion of it being autumn and sitting around wearing shorts and a tank top would be so foreign in so many places of the world. However, in Perth, yeah, we really, it's like the summer stretches out through the first part of autumn, and then winter starts, and we have like pretty solid winter. Like, we know no snow, never any snow, no snow here in Perth anyway. There's only a few places in all of Australia where they get any snow, and those places, I'm told by skiing enthusiasts, aren't a patch on places where it really snows, which includes like New Zealand, which is actually a long way from Perth, but is not that far from Melbourne or Sydney. For that matter, Japan, which is closer to Perth, have some pretty good areas where it gets pretty snowy. And then of course, like the classic, places where you go to ski. I mean, I've actually been to Aspen, but I was there in the summer. So parts of America, and then all through parts of Europe where they're very classic, very expensive snow, snowfields, sort of, and the snow and the towns where people go. I know, and I shouldn't leave out Canada for that matter as well, of course. Actually, speaking of Canada, one of my very, very best friends in the world, he and when I say in the world, like, it really is that now, because he lives in Montreal, where it snows hardcore. And of course, yeah, so they get big snow in certain parts of Canada as well, and other places. I'm not trying to be, look, this isn't a podcast about snow places to go skiing. I've never been skiing in my life. I'd never actually even really seen snow properly. Certainly never seen falling snow until I lived in the UK. And that was like this really unfortunate introduction to snow, because in Edinburgh, it would snow just enough to be really painful. And when I say painful, I mean like um, if you had a car, which and I actually bought a car. It was the second winter that I was there that I decided to buy a car because it was so cold. And not, I mean, look, when I say so cold, I'm not talking as nearly as cold as it gets in parts of the world where it gets cold. But certainly for someone who's lived in Perth, Western Australia for the all of their life up to that point and thereafter, it felt pretty bloody cold. And I would literally like head to toe, beanie, scarf, the heaviest winter jacket that I could buy. I spent about $600 on a jacket like that I got. It was Pinko, which is an Italian designer label. 600 quid, I should say, 600 pounds. On this jacket, and it was awesome. I loved it. So so I would get rugged up literally from head to toe, every part, boots, socks, all of that. And then I would walk out of the house to go to the bus stop, which wasn't very far, and any part of my body that was not, and gloves, and any part of my body that was exposed to the winter air would feel like it was going to freeze. My nose would feel just in the time it would take me to walk to the bus stop, stand and wait for the bus to arrive. It would feel like my nose was going to fall off from frostbite. Now, I can't imagine what it actually feels like to have frostbite. So obviously, that's just me being overly dramatic. However, that's it was very, very, very cold for a Perth girl in winter there. And then of course, so the snow would fall, the buses would stop. There was a couple of times I got stranded at work because I'd taken the bus to work and then they cancelled the buses like while I was at work, and so I was stuck at work. Can't even remember how I got home. I think my boss gave me a lift home at least once, and then maybe the second time that the bus stop, someone they would always give me a lift most of the way home, and then I would walk, which was treacherous because it would snow just enough to like I said, block the roads such that they would require to be plowed. They would need to be plowed and stop the buses and all that stuff. But then not enough for it to be pretty or do anything with, and then the sidewalks would literally freeze. So, I remember like one time like walking home from the bus, and I was wearing not the most sensible shoes. They were warm shoes, they were boots, they were warm boots. They didn't have very good tread on them, and just going up straight, just up and over on my ass. Like I just went, my feet went straight out from underneath me, and I landed hard on my backside. That was very painful and quite embarrassing, although I don't think anyone actually saw. Not that, look, I mean, back then, yeah, I still was a little bit prone to getting embarrassed. These days, I very rarely get embarrassed. I sort of, it's one of those things of like, as you get older, this is true for most people, you really do develop a pretty good ability to stop caring what other people think of you. Or most people do anyway. And certainly in a situation like that, I could see the funny side of it as soon as I was back in my apartment, but whilst I was like there lying on the freezing cold pavement, like nursing a very, very sore coccyx bone, and then having to like very carefully negotiate my way back onto my feet to make sure it didn't happen again, and then sort of like doing this like tiptoey type, just to make sure I didn't fall, it didn't just keep happening over and over again, like for the rest of the walk home to my apartment. Oh yeah, but I laughed about it afterwards. Because coming from in a place like Perth, we don't experience anything like that. We'll get frost on grass, but we never get frost on our roads. We certainly never get like the road the footpaths never freeze over here. And I was completely unprepared for the fact that after it snowed and that the footpaths would freeze over. Um, yeah, that was a lesson that my coccyx learnt very much the hard way. Anyway, so I thought that for today's video that I would talk a little bit about something that I've actually been learning about in my social work unit. But it's not something that is isolated to social work studies. In fact, it's something that is widely employed throughout healthcare, I suspect teaching at the very least, and probably a bunch of other disciplines, and that is strengths based practice. But I'm not going to talk about practice as in like social work practice. I mean, I'm not even a social work practitioner yet, so I can't speak with any authority on social work practice. However, we are beginning to learn about social work practice and how to be social workers now, as opposed to just theory. We're doing both. We're learning both at the moment. They're trying to integrate them so into our learning. So strength-based practice is basically a sort of ideology that you can apply to, I think, actually anything pretty much. Um, And there's a really good TED talk that I'm going to link to in the description, which we had to watch. Was one of the required like reading slash, they give us a bunch of, we have a lecture every week, and then we have a tutorial usually online, and then we have like all this stuff, all these required readings, and sometimes they switch it up a bit and they give us some videos instead of just academic papers to read. So I was watching this TED talk. It was on the required reading list, and it was really good. And I knew about it already. I'd come across it many times. I but I'd never sort of really seen it, I guess, described quite as well as I felt like it was in this TED talk. And the TED talk's only like 12 minutes. Like it's not a brain melter by any stretch. And I feel like it's quite, it's one of the, TED, look, I think TED talks are great. Because the TED brand has just become so big, and with TEDx, now there are so many TED Talks. Look, some of them are better than others. I'll just say it like that. And some of the people who are invited to give those talks are better presenters than others. This particular one, I felt like she was a really good presenter, and I felt like what she had to say was really interesting, and I liked the way that she explained the concept of taking a strength-based approach to social work practice, and but she didn't keep it so like social worky that I didn't feel like that there was opportunities for people to see how they could apply it in other areas. But just for the sake of it, I'm going to essentially talk about how I think that the strength-based approach could be useful to apply to your life, my life, anybody who's on a journey to personal growth, who's trying to achieve a greater sense of just purpose and contentment in their life, who wants to just, I guess, live, who's working towards, I guess, a better version of, I hate that saying. Your best self. I hate that saying. I hate it with a passion. Sorry, Oprah. I think I don't know if it was she originally was the one who came up with it, but she was certainly the first time I heard anyone say it. Yeah, live your best life or whatever. I wish they'd come up with a different way to put it already, but that's fine. You know what I'm talking about. If you feel like your life could be better and you are looking for information, if you're looking for strategies, if you're looking for anecdotal, I suppose, anecdotal, like anecdotal methodologies. That's kind of what this channel is supposed to be about. Although I haven't done that much anecdotal stuff. I know my last video was just me talking about very personal issues, and I didn't actually even realize how personal. I totally forgot what was in that video until my auntie sent me a text message and said that she'd watched it and expressed her concern, because it's very evident if you watch that video that I had been crying, and I was really upset, and look, and I suppose just in case you watch the video, yes, I did come to a resolution with my father. We did talk about it a little bit. He did apologize, and we went out for lunch. He took me out for lunch that Wednesday, which he said, maybe we can make this a regular thing. And I said, well, that'd be great. And so we'll see. That's always going to be a work in progress. I think my relationship with both of my parents is always going to be a work in progress. Just because I feel like they don't really know me that well. And that's partially my fault, and it's partially their fault. But I don't hold any resentment towards them anymore for it. I think that they should have made more of an effort over the years, and I think that the fact that they didn't caused me to mistrust them. So, and therefore put up, boundaries and road and blocks to them being able to get to know me more organically. And I don't think that was the wrong thing to do at all. However, I can see that if I'm looking at it from the bigger perspective, by being emotionally unavailable, by not being vulnerable around my parents more often, I in part created the situation that we have now, where I have two parents who love me very much, who want the best for me, but really don't know me very well. Anyway, so getting back to strength-based view of your life and how you can use this whole theory of strength-based that word, I don't even have a lisp. I feel so sorry for people with lisps. I mean, people talk about like people that have like who stutter, and look, stuttering must be horrible as well. But I feel like people with talk with lisps, are kind of like don't get enough like sympathy and attention, because it would really suck, because I can barely say the word strengths, and I don't have a lisp. So too bad I decided to make a whole podcast about it, Anyway, so here's what I think, right? Hopefully you have some awareness of the fact that in your life, probably to this day, but certainly previously in your life, you will have different pairs of glasses, if you like, different lenses through which you see, which you put on and take off for different situations. It's not at all uncommon. In fact, it's the norm for people to have a set of lenses that they wear to the office, because a lot of jobs require you to see things in terms of company policy, to act in accordance with company policy, which you may or may not always entirely agree with. They sort of want you to turn off some of your independent thinking often. That's the sort of job that I generally don't want to work in. However, it's the norm. It is absolutely the norm for organizations to expect employees to conform to their policies. And so if you want to work in a job like that, like, working for the government's a great example, right? Because they have a lot of policy, they have a lot of policy about for the rest of us, and then they also have a lot of policy for how they run their operations, and people that work for the government usually are frustrated as hell because they can't be as effective as they know they could be because of the infrastructure, the structure, the existing procedures, which they're not allowed to use their intuition and change, or they're not allowed to bring their existing skill set and like make changes or improvements to the way things are done because it's in the policies and procedures that this is the way it's done. That very frustrating, and that is also true for quite a number of other industries. And so often we have a pair of lenses that we wear to work, and it is essentially like allows us to see things as the company wants us to see them, to the exclusion of other things. We often will have a set of lenses that we put on when we're around our family. And sometimes this is more akin to the rose-colored glasses, whereby we will allow our family to do all sorts of things that we would not ever put up with in other people just because they're our family. Again, I don't always think that that's a good thing. However, the main thing is that you become familiar with the fact that you're doing this. And by the way, it's not like you go through a conscious process. All right, I'm going to have dinner I'm going to Christmas dinner. Need to put the family lenses on. It's not like it's a conscious thing. It's very much subconsciously programmed. And it's reinforced as soon as you walk into the room and you see your family members, and you have all these like memories that, and even if the memories aren't being recalled, anything you've learned, any sort of traumatic, or even if not traumatic, but like any sort of messages that you've picked up on from past experiences interacting with your family, they don't even have to enter your consciousness. In fact, they usually don't. They usually just remain in your subconscious. And so you will enter this mode of complicity and amiability, and you'll pretend to like people that you probably don't like, and you'll overlook bad behavior from family members that maybe have had too much to drink or whatever at Christmas. It's completely standard. I think that it's perfectly okay to have different lenses that we wear in different situations. It's a protective mechanism, actually, in actual practice. Our subconscious mind has given us that ability in order to protect us. However, until we become exactly aware of what those lenses look like and what they are stopping us from being able to see and what they are teaching us, what they are telling us, how they are guiding us in those situations and how they are affecting our behavior so that we are not being authentic in those situations. That's what's in, it's important to figure that stuff out. It's important to figure out any time when you're not being authentic. You need to figure out why. What was the trigger? It could be a spontaneous situation where you walk into a bank and your signature doesn't match the signature that they have on file, and so they're scrutinizing your ID and they're looking at you like you might be trying to commit identity fraud or something like that, and you start to feel really like excuse me, I've been a customer here for like 20 years, like this is really unfair and stuff. But instead of speaking up and saying look, signatures are not the best way to determine authenticity. Instead, you say nothing and you just are complicit and you just do whatever produce all the ID and you let them do the checks and whatever. And then if you're still standing there after they've put you through all this, then they usually figure, oh, well, she hasn't run, so she's probably okay. It's a test. So also in those moments, that will be when we will often start talking slightly, with slightly more posh, speaking the Queen's English perhaps a little more, or not everybody, of course. Some people just start, fuck you, fuck this, fucking shit, fucking, and then security gets them out of the bank. But and that's the reason why, if you want to get your money out of the bank and they're giving you a hard time, that you need to play the game, and it is a game. And it sucks. And it shouldn't be like that. But it is. And so the main thing is that whenever we find ourselves being authentic, for whatever reason, not saying what we know to be true, not speaking up for us, not standing up for ourselves, not standing up for what we believe is right, listening to someone just carry on about a pile of garbage and not saying, hey, hold up, like, you don't know what you're talking about. Anytime that we're not being authentic, and maybe you being authentic is not to speak up. That's fine. That's actually okay. However, you've got a voice, and people like that occasionally need to be put in their place. I know you probably don't want to have to be the person to do it because you probably hate confrontation. I hate confrontation. I will do anything to avoid confrontation. Literally anything. However, I've learned over the years that sometimes we need to have confrontation. Sometimes we need to speak up, and sometimes we need to for our voice to be heard, and we need to make sure that our voice is heard, even though whomever it is that we're talking to clearly doesn't want to hear our take on things. It's important for our self-esteem. It's important for our sense of value, of value in this world. And also, you've got every right, there is no such, honestly, sure, some people have more education, more experience in a given subject matter, and therefore can freely speak with more authority on that subject matter. However, even if you have less experience and less, training, formal training or education on that subject matter, if they say something that is incorrect in your experience, and you're not just guessing, but you absolutely should say something. Don't be rude. Just wait until they pause and then say, excuse me, with what you were just saying, if I understand what you were saying correctly, you were basically suggesting blah, 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 Well, my experience is different. I've actually experienced something quite different to that. And I think that, you might value from it, you might be able to learn something from hearing my experience. Yeah, in an ideal world, every conversation would be two people who are brilliant at assertive communication, just having a very, very level back and forth, very polite and all that. Yeah, not the way the world works, really, is it? But anyway. So getting back to strengths-based stuff. So the reason I brought up the lenses is because a strengths-based lens is, I think, an alternative to rose-tinted glasses or whatever other sort of lens you might be applying to things, and it's sort of the whole gratitude, beauty thing, and I did that video about beauty and gratitude. That this sort of is related. When you put on your strengths lenses, then what you are going to be tuning in for are what's working here, what's good here, what here, and when I say here, I mean your environment. So could be in your immediate family, could be in your workplace, could be in your community, could be in your state, your country. It's worth doing the exercise for all of those levels, actually. And you don't have to write it all out or whatever, but just think about it. Just think about it, and think about, okay, so, I've got a lot of complaints. I have a lot of complaints about our government, and I have a lot of complaints about my country. I'm proud to be Australian. However, I have there are so many things about Australia's history, the way that we've treated and we continue to treat Aboriginal people, that makes me almost ashamed to be Australian sometimes. Same goes for people who are socially outcast, homeless people in particular, I'm passionate about, as you know. So when you put on your strengths-based lens, what you're going to do is you're going to look at your family, let's just say, for example, your immediate family, and you're going to say, okay, rather than like just noticing the fact that, you know, your child's come home from school just covered in mud for no apparent reason, and appears to, and his teachers just told me that he's been like acting up in class and blah 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 blah. Instead, you're going to say, you're going to look at your kid and you're going to say, but my kid is really intelligent, really interested in certain things. He has a talent for things. He has an aptitude for things. He has a natural in, you know, like interest, a passion even in for understanding whatever, you know, frogs, trucks, bikes, trees, birds, whatever, it could be anything, maybe your kid is a really good dancer, or maybe your kid like just loves to dance. Because I'll tell you, that's one thing, is that, when we think of strengths, often we're too quick to sort of think of strengths as being things that we're good at. Now, things that we love to do, that's just as good. Because I tell you what, like, you ask any employer, like, they would rather have someone who loves to do what they do, but isn't quite as good at the job as somebody else who is good at the job but doesn't really like doing it. If it's something that you love to do, that's always a strength. So things that you love to do, things that members of your family love to do, and then you're going to turn it onto yourself. And this is very important, because understanding ourselves, we need to always stay balanced. And it's so easy to get tripped up when we're doing self-analysis, self-examination type work, to focus on all of the negative things about ourselves. And that is unhealthy. That's unhealthy for our brain. It's unhealthy for our emotional well-being, our mental health, our physical health even. So try applying a strengths lens to yourself and just spend like 10 minutes just freestyling. I'm not talking about, you don't have to rap. I mean, if you can rap, great, but I can't rap. But just freestyle it, audio record it, because that's faster than writing or typing for most people. 10 minutes, and you can't say anything negative at all. It has to all be 100% things that you either love doing or that you're good at, and that you're proud of yourself, or that you're proud of yourself for. Ideally all three. If you can't get to 10 minutes, if you run out of ideas before you get to 10 minutes, you've got a bit of work to do. And that's not a criticism. It just means that you're probably so familiar. You're probably so used to thinking about hearing from other people, getting feedback. The world that we live in is very critical. It's very harsh. Everything is based around what we failed to do, and it's very, very rare that we actually get any, positive feedback from work, from loved ones, from anything. It's very rare that we get positive feedback. You actually have to go looking for it. And so you kind of have to see it where it hasn't been said. You have to be able to say, Well, you know, my friend, I must be a great friend because my friends always are happy to have me, always enjoy having me around, like they always invite me to come around, and they always engaging with me, so I must be that, they must value me, even if they're not saying it, you know. So give us a go, give it a go. Let me know what you think. If you want, like, share your actual, like, if maybe if you want to make a video recording, share your video recording with me. I'd love to see it. And I'll do one as well. After this video, I've got to go get some groceries, and then it's going to be dark, but I might do a burn that bridge and delete after dark episode follow up. All right then. I hope everyone had a good day, has a good weekend coming up, and I will post that TED Talk in the description, and I'll try and do that video, of my strengths, my strengths lensed view of myself. I'll try and make sure I do that imminently, very, very shortly after I get this video up. All right. Good night, everyone. Happy, oh God, Friday. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. And I forgot to say, I would like to once again, and I always do, and I know it probably sounds repetitive and a bit silly to some of you. However, I feel like this is so important. Where I live, where I study, my home, this is not my land. This is the land of the Whadjuk Noongar people, and I would like to acknowledge them. I would like to pay my respects to to Aboriginal elders, past, present, and emerging. And I would also like to thank them so much for looking after our land so well for all those years until we came here and did diabolical things and essentially forced them off it. Like I am trying to learn your ways of understanding land and Aboriginal philosophy is something that I'm studying on the side. Like, I think we have a lot to learn from you guys, and I look forward to deepening my understanding, deepening my connection. And I thank you. I'd like to thank, I genuinely want to thank every Aboriginal Australian for persisting and for putting up with us in spite of all of the horrible things that we've done. My heart goes out, but also know that there are people like me out there, Wadjulas like me out there, who want better, I want treaty, I want equality, and I want you guys to be able to, I want your culture to be respected, admired, taught in schools, just like in New Zealand, Maori culture is. It should be, New Zealand, they got it right. Why did we have to get it so wrong? Anyway, all right, guys. Till next time.